Hey, do you like this song? I feel like hearing the first 10 seconds of it over and over and over. Let me start with the good. The map editor, the campaign editor, the little optional side modes, that's awesome. In fact, those modes by themselves boosted the score of this game by like 40 points. Which is just awesome. I mean, I want to just say this, without hyperbole, I had more fun fiddling with the map editor and designing campaign scripts and figuring out how things work and trying to solve just different issues with that than I did actually playing the game. In fact, I think I gave a grand total of like 5 pluses to the gameplay for both campaigns total. I don't know how else to summarize that, to be real with you. The visuals certainly look nice. They do. They're very, very, very good. Well animated, well presented. The fact that there's only really like 3 biomes kind of hurts things. But the story of the game exists. Yeah, I could definitely say with certainty it exists. But honestly, I think we're gonna have to pull this over here because I think this is appropriate. There we go. And of course, you can barely see the darn thing. There we go. It's a gift from my sister, for those of you who see this dumb thing. Anyways, I cannot make that any more visible, can I? That's fine. Nobody cares. Nobody's even watching this. Pumpernickel. So, this game commits almost every sin that most tactical turn-based games make. Turns take too long. Maps are too large for how little movement everyone has. Units don't really have good variety. There are several units which are just trash, which are just not as good as other units. And the economy side of things is decent, but depends entirely on whether or not you're actually in a good map to support it. Oh, hang on, let's replay the song again. You gotta hear the same song again, right? That's another thing. The music this song that's playing right here is what you will hear for literally 98% of the main campaign. Because you're always playing as the same person. Well, almost always playing. That's the other 2%. So you just hear this song on every map forever. Unless you're playing as someone else, because the song that plays depends on your commander unit. There's no distinction between the sides. So a Leaf Infantry and a Mercian Infantry and a Heaven's Blow, whatever, I can't remember what their freaking names are. Felheim Infantry, completely identical. They look different, but they are 100% identical in terms of stats. It's chess. So that can work. I have seen that work before, but not here. It actually removes some extra depth to the game. And like I said, with the unit design problems that are already there, because there's some units that are just straight up trash, that doesn't work either. Like, for example, let's say you have a unit that is relatively cheap, very fast, it's got good range, low health, but decent damage, and does more damage when combined with another of its own type. Okay, that sounds like a swarm unit, right? Cool. You can produce 1 unit per turn. On some maps, you can produce 2. You're probably noticing a trend, but I'll move forward a little bit. You know what? No, I'm just going to go for the jugular. It's the map design. The map design in this game sucks. I gave 1 level positive to the entire game for a single mission in the DLC, which was Florin 2, if you're wondering. It was the only level I consider to be actually well designed in the entire game. Every other level was just a pretty bog standard kill-all, or the kind of thing that I would expect from either a tech demo or something from the 90s. You know what I'm talking about, right? You played strategy games back in the day? No, of course you haven't. But if you have, I'll let the song move forward. If you have, you know what I'm talking about. There's no real design on display. It's just enemy base and units, your base and units, go. And that's kind of it. No varied win conditions, no variety of scripts or triggers or anything fun or interesting or innovative. It's just a map. And here's the worst part. That's fun. The first and second and maybe third time. This is Dragon Age 2 syndrome in a nutshell. Something that is fun, but ultimately shallow. And as a result of the shallowness, it gets old quickly. Everyone is going to get older at a certain point or another. Where your point is depends on you. But at some point or other, you just kind of are like, okay, I'm doing the same map again. Now, the DLC upped the ante here by having the same map, but also on the side, over there, there's some gimmicks and mechanics. And that's it. I'm not even going to get into the final mission, which is so many levels of bullcrap. I'm just moving on. The puzzles are good. I actually like the puzzle modes, legitimately. They're exactly what they sound like. Here's the layout, here's the setup, solve for X, go. Cool, fun, interesting, engaging, absolutely. I like the arcade modes. They're a little bite-sized, but they're fun for what they are. And it does have co-op, so that's cool. But if, yeah, here's the thing that really bothers me. Remember I mentioned that map editor? That map editor is legit. We spent about 5 hours designing a couple of missions, just 2. And we didn't polish them, because polish takes a lot of time, and that's not what we were there to do. We were there to review. But if I was to actually polish those up, that'd probably take a few more days, because that's how that works. But I honestly think we came up with some really interesting and legitimately cool mechanics. Let me name one for you. So, enemy bases down here. They've got 4 barracks. Now, they are scripted to gain money every turn, so they don't need towns. And they gain enough money to produce dogs. Because we were going with dog theme. We decided on dog theme, we went with dog theme. So they can push out 4 dogs every turn. They also have a mounted cavalry, who is the enemy dog handler, who is controlling the enemy dogs and forcing them into this horrible zombie state. Okay. There's also a fairly defensible line, followed by another fairly defensible line, followed by your spot. And your job is to not die. Cool. You start off with almost nothing. But you do start off with several villagers and no source of income. But you have multiple barracks. Every time you get a villager back to your town, you gain a chunk of money. There's one other town off to the side, which will generate a villager every turn, so long as you still control it. However, the moment the enemy attack that town, it's destroyed. There's no capturing it back. It's just gone. The moment you destroy the enemy mounted cavalry, the guy who runs around, it plays a cutscene saying you've taken out the dog handler and the dogs have gone free. Why is that significant? Well, if you decide to take out the enemy barracks, the first time you take them out, they spawn dogs, and then they're destroyed, so you can't actually capture their barracks. But if you take the dog handler out first, then he's dead, the dogs are free, and you knock over the barracks, nothing happens. There's some give and pull, and it would take several polishing passes, several QA tests to really make this thing pop, but that's the general concept. All of that is more designed than every mission in the entire game had. And that was something we threw together as a tech demo to test how the editor worked. The second map, I think, was a lot more fun and interesting, and we did a little bit more fiddling with that. So, the enemy starts over here, and we've staggered where they were, so they would come in waves to you, depending on how far away they were. We just counted tiles. And the enemy also spawns 4 dogs over at the right side of the map every turn. You start off with very little, and no barracks, no ability to produce units whatsoever. However, after a couple of turns, you're told, hold the line, hold the line. Caesar's coming. He's a dog. So Caesar shows up. Yes! Caesar shows up, and he's got lots of scripts attached to him, because every time Caesar kills a unit, you basically convert it, right? That's the idea. So you knock over one of the enemy dogs, it becomes one of your dogs, fresh and ready to go on the spot. Now, if done properly, this is actually really nicely balanced, too, because it's not as wavy as you'd think, because it's pretty easy to lose momentum, and if you lose momentum, you're dead. But if you gain momentum, then you become this tidal wave of dogs, basically a zombie apocalypse scenario, sweeping over the rest of the map, taking all the enemy dogs, which then wins the match. However, we added a few other gimmicks on that, because why not? So we made it so that Caesar's groove ability, which I barely talked about because of how much I was unimpressed with it, it allows you to take another turn, but every time you use the groove, it also heals all of your units, on the map. And it allows Caesar to then take another turn. You also don't generate very much groove from combat, but what you do is every time you convert a dog, you gain a bit of groove for Caesar. So conversions give you groove, groove gives you heals, and another turn on Caesar, which allows you to convert more. See the idea? All of this whole concept, was all stuff that's available in the game. Where is this in the campaign design? Now, I know this sounds gimmicky, but yeah. We had a third idea, too, which was going to be this whole other thing, which I won't bore you with right now, because I've probably talked too much about this already. The point I'm trying to reach is that what we did was something that's honestly surface level. Just ideas that were off the top of our heads. Other stuff that occurred to me when I was vacuuming during the lunch break was, like, for example, you could do a thing where you have no money generation, so you only gain money from killing enemy units. Mercenary campaign, right? So and the enemy is also spawning units over to the side, but those units might be a bit more difficult than the actual units that the enemy actually has access to. So do you want to get the extra payday, or do you want to save the units that you actually have and just move forward? Also, I figured out a way to make it so that your money totals carries forward between maps. So you could actually have a total money counter across the entire campaign. Admittedly, that takes a lot of scripting because the base game doesn't support any kind of carry forward in maps. But with the existing scripting that exists, you can manually jury-rig that to make that happen. I figured out a way to make both units and money carry forward across maps. Probably the only two things that I could do that with. You know? We thought about ideas for like a vampiric campaign or like another conversion, like a whole campaign centered around the conversion kind of mechanic we set up with the dogs. There's so much you could do with this. Oh yeah, that's another thing. We came up with a re-raise mechanic, or Life 3, if you're familiar with that. So there's actually a lot of ways to accomplish this. It boils down to this. Commander dies, and rather than instantly losing the match, they can get back up. Now, making them get back up instantly, that's easy. That's a joke. What got tricky is making it so they could get back up after a certain requirement has been met. Maybe a certain number of turns. Maybe a certain counter has to be raised by doing certain types of action, like killing enemies, or converting enemies, or claiming spots, or whatever. Maybe you need a certain amount of money. Maybe you require maybe you need some kind of combination of all these things. But the point is, maybe you have to use grooves on other commanders. All of these things are things you could do within the map editor. And I'm spending so much time talking about this because I want you to understand that if you want a game to be a sandbox to make your own maps and campaigns, this is it. This is a really robust map editor and campaign editor that I extraordinarily recommend. I've actually legitimately put thought into trying to use this as a way to maybe do some of the rewrites or extant stuff. Because there's even a cutscene editor, for God's sakes, that allows you to make custom cutscenes for certain events, on top of everything else that I just told you about. But I don't recommend playing the campaign, because the campaign sucks. Next game, so, pause. I mentioned this on stream, too. A lot of the games that have been scoring badly lately are games that I was looking forward to, which clearly proves, as Lord Harriman said, that I just have terrible, terrible ability to tell what games I'm going to actually enjoy before I get there. There's like 4 other games on the list right now, actually I think 5 other games on the list right now, that I am legitimately looking forward to. And I hope at least one of them is actually good. And speaking of which, that's the next game we're going to be hitting, which is Maneater. See you there.